When the Jeep Gladiator rolls off the factory assembly line, let's be honest, they don't really look that aggressive. Perhaps one of the biggest changes you can make to the Jeep Gladiator is adding on a lift kit. It not only changes the stance of the vehicle, allows you to run larger wheels and tires, but it just makes this thing look like a Jeep truck that is capable of anything. In today's video, we're gonna be installing the best lift kit for our 2025 Jeep Gladiator Juice. That's freaking, this thing's gonna be big. That's gonna be it's gonna be a big Jeep. CLAYTON Off-ROAD wanted to send us this Overland Plus Suspension System for us to try out on our Jeep Gladiator. They sent it to us at no charge, and it's because of so many years of working with these guys and the fact that we trust everything that's laid out on this table. But I want you guys to stay to the end of this video because not only did we receive a lift kit for our Jeep at no cost, but we're actually gonna be doing a giveaway where you may have the chance to have your very own Overland Plus Suspension System from CLAYTON Off-ROAD. Stay to the end as we get into more details, but let's explain everything we've got out on the table. So when we started going down the rabbit hole of what size lift and wheels and tires we wanted on our Gladiator, we had a lot of decisions to make. We knew we wanted to run a set of 37s just because they're so proportionate on these Jeeps, but we also knew that we had the standard style fender flares, and we wanted to make sure we didn't lift it absolutely incredibly high into the air. We've seen 3.5, 4.5 inch lift kits that get crazy high, and then that Jeep ends up just being a monster. So what we decided to go with is a CLAYTON Off-ROAD 2.5 inch Overland Plus Suspension System. Now, everything laid out on the table here, you're familiar with the CLAYTON Off-ROAD quality, but you have not seen us do a Gladiator on this channel. I've done one on my personal 2020 Gladiator Rubicon, and Ryan can recall that was a 3.5 inch kit, and that thing was massive. But we wanted this thing to look not only more beefy, we wanted it to perform underneath, and then we also wanted to be able to clear those 37s for everything we have planned for this Jeep. Now, when you go on CLAYTON Off-ROAD's website, you can kind of decide what you'd like to order. Now, we got the 2.5 inch Overland Plus system, which of course comes with your coil springs, your control arms, all the other miscellaneous pieces like your sway bar end links, track bars, and everything else to get that bolted on, but then you get to decide what else you'd like to add on. So the Overland Plus Suspension System is a base, and then you can add on, like we did, the Fox 2.0 shocks, and you can decide kind of how crazy you want to go with it. We went with the Overland Plus as we've had great success with them in the past. They do not require as much maintenance as the premium kit. It limits the flex just a tad bit compared to the other bushings. However, with this one, you get a much smoother and softer ride on the road. I've loved these kits on all of our JLs, and I think, Ryan, this isn't going to be a full install video today. And I would say, if you're not experienced with it, definitely take it to a reputable shop. Today's video is just for entertainment purposes, but we're going to get this thing installed here in our shop, and let's turn this Gladiator into something a bit more beefy. All right, guys, so what I think we're gonna do is we're gonna do the driver's side first. That way on the passenger side, we can get some more light. We're gonna loosen up, actually before I do so, we're gonna loosen up this upper control arm bolt and then the lower control arm bolt too, just so it can sag a little bit easier. But on CLAYTON Off-ROAD, they say, do the shock bolts, do the sway bar links, loosen up the track bar, and then do one side first with the control arms, and then do the other side. So leave the other side on, we'll do the driver's side first, get this dialed in, and then we'll do the passenger side. That way you're not trying to fight the whole thing, because I do want to check for caster angle. They give you measurements to start with, but we want about 5 degrees of caster. They say anywhere from 4.5 to 5.5, and we can adjust all that with the control arm. So we're gonna use their baseline measurements, and then we'll get it dialed in. Always check all your lines here, your breather hose, your brake lines. You can see we got that bracket disconnected because you don't want any of that to be strained. But that's what you can see. We got that all lowered, so yeah, don't have too much tension, and we can easily get the factory spring out. Let's see the difference, Ryan. I always like doing this. There you go. So there's your front coil springs, and then the stock on the Gladiator. So there you have it. The only piece you're gonna reuse from the stock will be that rubber isolator up top that will go back into the coil bucket. But yeah, other than that, this can be set aside, and the new one here can go in when it's ready. So there's factory control arm number 1 that's being pulled out. We don't need this nut here for the brake line retention there. So right away, just looking at both of these control arms next to each other, you can see just how much more beefy the Clayton control arm is. The thickness of this, I want to say, is 1/4-inch wall tubing. Compared to this probably weighs twice or 3 times as much. The bushings are larger. You've got still that bump out here, so that way you can make sure that your tires go back and forth lock to lock. Definitely check your offset when you're doing that as well. But just looking at the ends too of the control arm, Ryan, look at how much thicker even the metal is there on the end compared to the factory control arm. Even just the thickness comparison side by side, look at how much wider this is. Now Clayton, when I talked to them before, because a lot of people will go tubular control arms, you know, like this is the upper control arm, Ryan. So that is, you can see it's using tube. Now there's a reason the factory goes with square, you know, it's got more rigidity, it is strong, it's beefy, and it gives you a lot more to work with. So we're right around like 23 7/8 there. So you want to watch, because they do give you like the maximum amount this can be threaded out, because you don't want to have like one thread engaged in there. So you want to check the measurements there. We're just going by their specs. We're going to check it out. So we got 24 1/4 there. I just want to verify that this was, okay, yeah, fraction 24 5/16 for the front lower control arms. The max of this one on their website is 25 9/16. So yeah, you don't want to go past that. So we're not going to like jam anything into place either. That's very important as well, because you don't want to put any torque on these bushings while they're being installed. You want to wait till there's weight on the vehicle. But we got that front one in. Let's at least get the nut there. We want the bend to be down. So if you see that, how it kind of comes in, but it's bending down. This is the outside of the Jeep, this is the inside of the Jeep, so the bend is down and towards the inside. You can also reference this. Ryan, I'm just snugging everything up here, right? So we are not tightening anything, literally. I'm just making sure that the bolts and nuts are where they're supposed to be. Now what I'd like to do is go over to the other side and work on those control arms. 3 out of 4 control arms removed up front, and an impromptu trip to Home Depot to get the 1/2-inch impact because, well, I think it was about time. The 3/8 did well for a while, but you're gonna be breaking these nuts and bolts for these back control arms. The problem with this side, Ryan, is this thing right here. I just couldn't get enough leverage sitting here on the floor. On a lift, yeah, you could do it, but on a garage floor with this, the bracket here, you just couldn't do it. So, all right, guys, let's open up the front track bar because that is what's next. So we're gonna get this dialed in. The length of this track bar, they wanted at 34 1/8. So what's cool about this track bar is it's obviously way more beefy than the factory track bar. Fully sealed up bushings, so you don't need to grease those and go crazy. It's got the notch here for your front pumpkin too, so when you're flexing out, it has a little bit of a tilt forward too. See that, Ryan? So that's kind of where it would sit parallel, just like that. Nice tilt forward there. So we're gonna adjust this one to 34 1/8 inch. Take that right there, 34 1/8. Grab our factory upper bolt. Now what I like to do with the front track bar is actually just put the upper frame side bolt in, leave the bottom side just held up with a bungee, and then once you have everything back on the ground, you got it on wheels and tires, have a buddy go in there and turn the steering wheel a little bit, and it will actually shift the tub over the front axle. So because there's no track bar, a track bar literally in the name is so it tracks straight. Without the track bar, it can move and the tub can shift, or what's above the suspension. So when you go in there and just turn the wheel a little bit, you can get that lower bolt to go in really smooth instead of trying to use ratchet straps and pull it all around. Just go in there and do that. We gotta get our bump stop extensions in. It comes with an Allen key hardware, some Allen key hardware and a nut, but what I'm going to do is just put it in like so, and then not tighten all this down first. You do not want to have this on and mounted up, or else you're going to fight to get that lower perch over. So we're going to kind of slide this in loose like so, and then get our front spring in. So the only thing you want to watch for on the front is the isolator right here. This is going to have to go up, and there is a hole in it, and there's an alignment hole right back there. So like I said though, if you mounted this, Ryan, if we put this in here like so and had it there, we'd have to fight then to get over that side. And then before we get that fully on, slide this up in there. There you go. These are always fun. I just said to Ryan, I found a little bit of a secret was popping out the brake line retention bracket on the backside here with a 10 mil, and then you can just reach your box wrench in here. It makes it a little bit easier on this side because there's a lot going on up front. You can't get your hand through because you have the axle side of the track bar mount. So now some folks will bolt the top mount on and then cut the strap and let it go and try and shove the bolt in quick. we're going to cut the strap off first. These are the front shocks. So we just went with Fox Performance Series 2.0s meant for this lift. Clayton sells a wide variety of shocks that complement their lifts. So you've got Fox, you've got TerraFlex, a lot of different options, but they do give the availability to choose. Some companies make you pick exactly what they have. You can choose with Clayton. So we're gonna go ahead and throw these Fox shocks in and utilize the included lower shock bolts. So we're just once again snugging everything up. This is nowhere near torquing. We'll get to that point soon, but let's cut these straps off, and you'll see what I say when I cut the strap off. Watch this. See? So, very important when you're choosing shocks to choose the proper amount of travel, because the longer travel you have, the longer the body of the shock gets, and you don't want to have, say you have a 1.5 inch lift and you go travel that's up to like a 6 inch lift, the body of this will be even longer, and then it can literally only move a few inches until it's pounding into it. So, all right, so we got this top one just snugged up. Really wish from Jeep they would factory like cut this liner a little bit, but when it's done, it does cover up pretty well. The included lower shock bolts are going to replace the factory one down here. And then I want to say these are a 1/2 inch to mount that bracket on, but I think we're going to get the sway bar links done first. And then we're going to come back and tighten everything up. All right, guys, so the one thing you have to do with these sway bar links here is actually go ahead and cut them. So with this, you're given the lengths, and they give you a piece of this. It's basically universal for the sway bar links, and you know, they were saying they get a lot of flack for this sometimes, but the reason being is that if you ever decide to go up and lift, you can just order 2 new pieces of this from them, cut it to that length, and then trim it up. So we follow their instructions. We've got some lines marked with some paint marker. We're going to use our metal chop saw, and then just a little bit of a cleanup wheel there to fix those edges, but we should be good to go. So we're going to set this first, and then always with this, this might be, I would say, where kind of some of the specialty comes into play. So be safe, or if you're, I would just, yeah. So on our 25 Gladiator, we have a little bit of a spacer here that goes into the upper sway bar mount, but this, you can see we've got it shortened down here. So you can use the connecting rod, you shorten it down the exact amount that they say to, and then it does give you a center length. So for the JT 2.5 inch lift, 9.25 inches, I kept measuring this, and we're at 9.25 here. So we've got to put this little spacer in the upper part of the sway bar. Ryan, it's right over here. It's really odd on the JT and on these new 25s. This piece right here is different than the 2018 to 23. See that? Right. So you have to put this little job in here, and they have a Rubicon and a non-Rubicon one. This is the non-Rubicon. It just slips right in there. You know what I find really weird though? On my 392, this wasn't painted underneath. Remember? Yeah. We took it off and that was all bare. But this one's painted. It just seems like whatever they do that day in the factory is like what comes out. So I'm gonna see, maybe this one will require just a little bit of, they're machined, but there's might be a little bit of paint. So we'll tap this in. All right, guys, so the front's pretty much wrapped up. Everything has been torqued down, paint marked. The only thing we're not doing yet is the track bar. We'll have Ryan jump in once the wheels and tires on so we can shift that. We'll torque all that down. But an important thing too, when we were torquing all this down, I had the entire Jeep on its body weight. So it makes it easier if you put 2 giant jack stands underneath there, let the whole thing sit on its own body weight, and that way all the bushings aren't, if you tighten them and torque them down while it's kind of flexed out, and then as soon as you go to put it at ride height, those bushings are already under tension. So by doing this, this is basically where it's going to sit at ride height. The bushings aren't under tension when it's torqued down. So now let's throw in our fuel wheels and AVIX tires. We're super excited that these should actually fit now. Cue the first video, but yeah, I think they're going to look really good. We're going to throw these on. We got some spline lug nuts, and then we will move on to the rear after lunch. A little bit bigger. Look at the rear. And that's it. Okay. That's that Carolina lean right there. Now on the Gladiator, there's a little bit less going on in the rear than there is the front. Same with the Wrangler, but we've got a lot of goodies laid out here. Obviously we have 4 control arms. Now what's neat about the rear of the Gladiator is they are all just straight control arms. These are very beefy, ready to go. Jam nuts, same bushings like up front. We opted once again for the same Fox shocks in the rear as well. In this box, we've got our extended bump stop brackets. When you're going over those large bumps, this bump stop will hit onto this pad pad. The stock one is pretty low, so this raises it up the same amount that you would need. Now you can dial that in a little bit further depending on how much you want to flex. One of the coolest things laid out though are the triple rate rear coil springs. Now what's neat about a triple rate is it gives you 3 different spring rates built into one coil. So a smaller and a softer coil up top, more of a medium right here, and then the larger one down below. Now this adapts to daily driving, to bigger bumps, and then to fully flexing out. The triple rate's gonna give us a lot better on-road manners, especially if we hook up a trailer, if we load that bed down with some things, or we throw a Hemi in it and really squat it as we're gunning it down the road. Triple rates are the way to go, and we're super excited for these just to give us some more options in the future. Now that's not it. We also have this really cool product laid out here. This is their high clearance rear track bar. Now a lot of companies have fought with this because they just can't make a track bar that'll clear a larger tire underneath. We opted for 5 wheels and tires, meaning we're gonna try and mount that 37 up underneath. And of course, it's gonna limit a little bit of your clearance down below for coming off obstacles, but you can mount the spare underneath and not take up valuable bed space. Factory coil, let's see how much lift we're getting. 2.5, 3-inch lift in the rear. But you can see the factory does have, like, I would call this a dual rate spring. So this is one rate here, and then the second rate, you see how they're closer up here? This is gonna be for your daily driving. You can see I can squeeze those together. These are harder to squeeze together. The spring rate is softer up here. So on the rear of the Gladiator, like I was saying, it makes it a lot easier just because all of the control arms are basically on the exterior. They have a big old gap here because you have such a long rear extension over the rear axle to hold a bed as compared to the front where everything's going underneath and there's mounts that are inboard of the frame. Here you just have your bolts on the outside. So we already did the passenger side. What we're doing is just one control arm at a time. So we did both of those. We're gonna do the lower first, put the new one in, then put the upper. It helps to have a jack supporting the axle so you can go back and forth. But for some reason also I lost my 21mm box wrench, so I'm having to use an adjustable. So do not critique me in the comments, or do, and that's okay. All right, so we're gonna put our brand new Clayton lower control arm on. We want the adjustment nut to be up towards the frame side. So the frame side gets the adjustment. Our bolt back in. And once again, we are not tightening anything down until we get weight on the back end of the vehicle. So we're literally just putting some bolts in here. It helps to have that jack behind there so that way you can pick up and go down as needed. And yeah, that would have, I guess we gotta watch that too. We're like right on it, but you gotta watch because this flange right here, you can actually hit if you jack it or let it lower too far. So this will push up and bend that. It doesn't look like it is, but just be careful. If we were to go any lower than this, it probably would be really, really close. So just something to be mindful of. And I'll get this side in, and might have to do something off camera because we kind of have to play with it a little bit. Ryan, would you grab me a new control arm, please? From Clayton Off-Road. Ah, thank you. That's just what I ordered. Straight beef. All right, guys, we're gonna put our bump stop extensions on now. We've got some Allen key hardware that was included. So you wanna grab an Allen key and then a 1/2-inch box wrench to go underneath. And you wanna make sure that these are forward here, just like so. You wanna be able to read the C from the outside. That's a good way to know. And then in case you do go bigger, they have this pad with pre-drill holes so you can add on extra bump stops up top. So if you go to 3.5, you don't have to rip this out, you just add another piece to the top. So we'll get this snugged up, repeat the process on the other side, and keep on moving. It's now time to put the coil springs in. We're gonna put coil springs in both sides here. Remember to keep that rubber isolator up top, and there is a little alignment pin too. These things are heavy, so it's a good idea to maybe sit here and do it on the floor like this. But yeah, they got some weight. Check all your lines too, our breather hoses. We undid that bracket up there for our brake lines too. Just make sure nothing is catching. So we're now gonna put this in, and hopefully it goes well. That's freaking, this thing's gonna be big. That's gonna be it's gonna be a big Jeep. All right, guys, the last step of the back end here, we've got everything torqued down into spec. We've got to throw on our track bar. Now, Clayton included this adjustable track bar, which will actually clear a 37-inch tire. We have the stock one back here for now, but we're gonna throw a 37 up underneath this thing here in just a few minutes. But what we have to do is we adjusted this to length. We're gonna get this bolted up with the adjuster end up on the frame side, and then this fixed end down on the axle side using the OEM hardware. And that's gonna be it. We're gonna throw this in, put some wheels and tires on this thing, and then get in alignment and show you how it looks. Well guys, what do you think? About 8 hours later, a full work day of filming and throwing this lift on, and I think we accomplished our goal. The Gladiator looks absolutely fantastic behind us with these brand new 37-inch tires, 17-inch wheels, and of course the star of today's show, the CLAYTON Overland Plus 2.5-inch suspension system. Now mind you, this is a dark sky with the low fender flares. If you had a Rubicon or a Mojave, you're even taller on here. This is just, I would say, one of the most perfect stances with the 37-inch tire. I would say that going bigger than a 37, you're gonna go a little bit higher, and that's when things start to get crazy. 37's 2.5-inch lift on a Gladiator, and we are looking absolutely fantastic this evening. What a transformation on this truck. But the best part of today's video is that we're actually excited to be launching our very first giveaway here on the channel. We are gonna be giving away an Overland Plus suspension system for the JL or JT from CLAYTON Off-Road. Now, there's no purchase necessary to enter, and of course, all the official rules are going to be linked below in the description. You just have to go on our site. There's a couple ways to enter, but one of the easiest is to go up, pick a hat up, pick some merch up, maybe a set of our floor lights, and we're going to be adding some more products to our site. Give our audience a chance to have their JL or JT looking something like this, and maybe just keep ramping this up. We're closer and closer to 100,000 subscribers. A lot of other channels do it, but they never show the builds. We would love to build a Jeep up and then have the opportunity to give it away, maybe around the 100,000 subscriber mark. But we can't just start that right away and not see if it's gonna work out or not. So I feel like this is a cool way to do it because we're testing, reviewing, and working with our friends at CLAYTON. But wouldn't that be really cool if you could get your Jeep looking like this? Either way, we're super excited to bring this to you guys. We're thrilled to have the Jeep lifted up, and the next stop for this thing, I think after we put these 37s, we're gonna notice just how quick, how much power we lost out of this Jeep. So a lot of cool plans, and now the snowball effect starts. The lift gets on, the wheels and tires look great. 2 days later, it's gonna be, what bumpers do we want? What this do we want? What that do we want? So let us know in the comments what you think about this lift kit size, and if you'd personally do something like this to your Jeep Gladiator. And especially a huge shout out to CLAYTON Off-Road. Those guys have been fantastic. In case you don't win the lift kit, be sure to use the DRC5 code. You can get 5% off your CLAYTON Off-Road lift kit purchase. So it's time to wrap it up. It's time to close up the shop and clean up and get the heck out of here. Ryan's behind the camera. I'm here talking to you. We want you to get out there and earn yours.